Hello and welcome back to another episode of InstaBlinks. I'm your host, Brian Graf, and today we have something extra special. Today we have not one, but two people joining me to talk about OpenSearch 3.0. So today I have Saurabh Singh, who's a software development manager for OpenSearch at AWS, and I have Andrew Ross here, who is a principal engineer and OpenSearch maintainer at AWS. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So, a lot of buzz around OpenSearch 3.0, and so I think we're going to step back really fast and talk about kind of the inception of what OpenSearch is, where it came from, the 1.0 timeframe, and how that kind of rolls into what is about to be released here at 3.0, and then we'll talk about what people should expect there. So, Saurabh, can you talk a little bit about what OpenSearch is? We don't need to go deeply into that, but what was it at 1.0, and what has been kind of the process or the life of OpenSearch to date?
Right. I think OpenSearch 1.0 has, it was launched in June 2021. And since then, I think it has had its own lifetime. The reason for the OpenSearch to kind of get incepted was because it was a fully open source fork of Elasticsearch. And with 1.0, the whole community came in, and it was like 100 plus contributions that went in for OpenSearch 1.0 to happen. When I say 100 plus contributions, these are like individual contributors who contributed, more from Amazon at that point in time. But over the last couple of years, or I would say 3 years now, we have a huge community, a huge group of partners who have come along the way, and they have kind of helped improve the feature. Yeah, I can go specific and talk about how this journey has been, but yeah, that has been the inception of OpenSearch. Yeah.
Well, let's jump into that a little bit. So from OpenSearch 1.0 to where we currently are, and you can tell us what the version is right now, right before we jump to 3.0, and if you know what some of the performance improvements have been for that, for example.
Right. So starting from OpenSearch 1.0, which was majorly the open source fork, we came to OpenSearch 2.0, which kind of launched a bunch of features, and then along the way, we of course targeted performance, which was one of the primary things what our users and community was looking out for. So between OpenSearch 1.0 and the latest version, which is OpenSearch 2.19, which just got launched like a couple of, I would say 1 month ago or so. That's the last version of 2.19 series, and we are looking forward for 3.0 so far. So we have achieved about like 6x performance improvement across different areas of, queries and operations that OpenSearch users typically look out for. These areas cover the whole section of log analytics and search use case, which are the primary use cases for OpenSearch users. And this 6x performance is kind of the aggregated improvement across different operations like text, query, sorting, aggregations, and other things. So these are like the primary performance on the search side. There have been improvements on the KNN and other use cases as well, which is vector is one of the other important use case of OpenSearch. And in the whole 2.x timeframe, we have added and matured the features along the vectors, AI and ML as well. So some of the vector improvements, which were also published in one of our recent blogs, covers like how vector search is one of the prominent feature that OpenSearch community look out for. And then other than just the core engine of Lucene, Vector kind of brought in like other two engines in comparison to, or I would say at parity with Lucene, which gave more flexibility and deployment options for OpenSearch users. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, tell me a little bit about, Saurabh was just mentioning, there have been a lot of improvements and a lot of things that have happened over the last 3 years in version 2. So why now for 3.0? What are we seeing here, and why was this such an important change for us to move to the 3.0 series here instead of continuing down the 2.x path?
Sure. I mean, one of the big motivating factors is some of our foundational dependencies were in need of an update, and there are some major version changes in those that sort of necessitate a major version update for us. Primarily, the big ones are Lucene, the the search library that is kind of at the bottom of the stack and powers much of OpenSearch. There's a new major version of Lucene, and we also wanted to update kind of the minimum supported version of the Java runtime. So those two were kind of big motivating factors. And then just, over the 2.5 years that the 2.x line has lived, you accumulate some technical debt. You have APIs that are deprecated now is particularly with those the foundational dependencies changing. This is a good opportunity for us to take a step forward. I will say that like much of the REST API that users rely on, and part of the reason the project is successful is there is this mature API that provides all these features. We're not just making massive changes to that. So like much of the API itself is the same and will continue to work the same as the 2.x line has done. We're sort of judicious with the deprecations there. But some of the, particularly for plugin developers, it's a little bit more impactful because of these foundational changes.
So let's jump into some of the technical deep dive on this. We've hinted at a few things, but like let's kind of lay it all out here. People are excited about 3.0. People can go to GitHub and see what's been, being worked on and kind of what to expect. But I know I went and looked. Our other developer advocate here has kind of combed through GitHub as well. And I think people are really interested to really know kind of a list of like, hey, what's coming? What should we be looking forward to here in a few weeks? So maybe we start here and we kind of work through a number of these things. We just lay them all out. So either of you want to start, and let's just kind of walk through what we can expect in 3.0.
Yeah, I can cover with some of the, as Andrew pointed out, some of the dependency updates that we get with Lucene 10. I can cover some of the things like how Lucene 10 is helping with some of the performance boost out of the box with OpenSearch will benefit out of it. And also, then I would let Andrew talk about some of the modularization effort that we are doing across different fronts of how 3.0 could be, a release where we are thinking about OpenSearch becoming more modern, more flexible, and more modularized for not just for developers but also for people who want to deploy it in different scheme of things, like in a cluster model, in a service-oriented model, and things like that. So yeah, so starting from Lucene 10, I think Lucene 10 kind of introduced a lot of varying improvements across how data structures are laid out. It introduced new data structures for sparse list postings and things like that, kind of improvement on those fronts. It also added some concurrency improvements on how the thread management is happening, how the CPU and IO is going to happen. So overall, what we have seen about 20% delta improvement if we run the benchmarks of our standard Big Five operations. So Big Five is a set of operations that we usually use to measure OpenSearch performance for. So it's kind of a collection of 5 different areas which we think that OpenSearch users typically would care about, especially coming from search and log analytics use case. So if we take those benchmarks and we run it, we get like about roughly 20% out of the box improvement across these different areas. So that's something we get out of the box. However, Lucene 10 also introduced some fundamental features, and I would say frameworks, which OpenSearch will continue to build upon in, let's say, 3.x story. So some of these improvements are like, concurrency improvement for intra-segment searches. So this will be a very, nice and new feature which OpenSearch can continue to build upon. Although OpenSearch currently has concurrent search, but this is limited to segment searches. So now it's like brings in the ability to go intra-segment and then achieve a higher level of concurrency. Similarly, Lucene introduced some skip list concept and things like that, so which will be very much useful and make things faster while you're retrieving docs or when you're kind of iterating to a large number of documents. So some of these improvements will be out of the box. However, in the journey of 3.x, OpenSearch will continue to build upon these. Similarly, there have been improvements on vector and HNSW as well. So HNSW is basically one of the primary use case for KNN searches that we have. And then also in Lucene 10, the ANN, which is the nearest neighbor algorithm, which was introduced in Lucene 10. It has matured in Lucene 9, I guess, and it has matured in Lucene 10. So those are out-of-the-box improvement, which KNN would also kind of, get. I'm sure there are other, improvements coming for, other related use cases, but these are the primary things what we are kind of looking out for, Lucene 10. Yeah, I will let Andrew cover some of the modelization effect. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we've done some work to start to decouple things, basically how the software is structured. That's kind of pretty low-level technical stuff, and we have a lot of work to continue to do there. But essentially, the architecture has been historically quite monolithic, and we are continuing to sort of, where it makes sense, pull things apart and kind of get to a more cloud-native architecture for the software. One feature that's coming in 3.0, still very early days for it, but really excited about it, is this new pull-based ingestion feature that has been actually principally implemented by one of our partners in the OpenSearch Software Foundation. Uber has done most of the development there. But that's a new type of ingestion where they have a use case where they have all their data is already written to a Kafka instance. And this new feature will allow OpenSearch to pull directly from Kafka, which allows for, there's a bunch of benefits to that, but it's essentially kind of getting away from this, the historic architecture where you had to collect batches and push them into a synchronous HTTP API, which is can be difficult to scale. So this new pull-based ingestion feature, I think, is really exciting, and a sort of evidence of the in general where we're taking this architecture.
I think it's great too that we're adding in, this integration with other open source technologies. Kafka is used pretty widely in the industry, right? And so being able to have that integration there opens up a whole bunch of, I don't know necessarily if it's use cases, but makes things a lot less complicated for some of the engineers to be able to pull that data and use that data, right?
For sure.
Awesome. What else? What else do we have on there? We talked Lucene 10. We talked about this. Anything else?
In addition to some of these, we have the separation as part of this modularization effort. We can think about like separation of compute storage, and within compute the readers and writers separation. That's also something that we have been hearing a lot from the community. So with 2.19 we launched an experimental version of I would say 2.17 actually. We launched the experimental version of reader writer separation. So that's going to be GA for 3.0, which means that now OpenSearch users can have the flexibility of deploying readers and searchers separately, which will allow them to kind of maintain these infrastructures differently, have like possibly a heterogeneous fleet, and then achieve like workload isolation, failure isolation, and things like that. So that's one of the features which was very much sought out for, which we are kind of going GA. Along with it, I think introduction of gRPC and Protobuf, and Andrew has been helping a lot on that. Again, working along with the partners like Uber, who are one of the major contributors there. So this whole new area of exposing a gRPC endpoint, so that now we can move to a binary protocol instead of like JSON-based communication over HTTP. So it's going to be a huge shift. It's going to be experimental in 3.0, but I think the framework level changes and things which are required are being done as part of 3.0 launch.
Great. Andrew, anything else on your side?
Yeah, just to add on, gRPC is another case where that is a widely used technology in the industry, and I think adding an integration into OpenSearch can help a lot of use cases. Again, that's very early days for that feature as well, but really excited to see where that goes.
Great. And then I think I heard somebody through the grapevine talk about some updates or changes to dashboards. Can you talk about any of that? Or am I maybe I'm wrong here?
No, I'm sure like there have been some improvements going on the dashboard side, and there's a lot of like, for example, Node.js upgrade is one of the prominent thing which comes along with the upgrade of dependency, and it kind of forces a lot of framework level changes across dashboard and the plugins which are using open source dashboards. Along with the dashboard, I feel like we have some improvements coming in different plugin features like KNN and again vectors and other plugins related stuff. Like for example, GPU-based processing and things are for vectors I think it is being introduced in 3.0 as part of the plan as of now. So yeah, those are some of the things which are relatively new across different plugin spaces as well.
Yeah. So we talked about modularity here. We talked about a lot of changes, a lot of big updates to things like Lucene, going to Lucene 10. And when we talk about versioning here and going to another major release, a lot of times I see that we're setting ourselves up for future success as well, going forward in other application versions. But usually that also introduces some breaking changes. And so maybe, as we've talked about some of these different features and things, that's great. What should customers be considering with this? Or are there any breaking changes that need to be considered as people start moving to OpenSearch 3?
Yeah, I think major changes like 3.0 gives an opportunity to kind of get rid of some of the technical debts and also how we can leap ahead in terms of technologies that we are using. So uh, I would let Andrew cover some of the breaking changes in terms of what we are doing for security. But at a high level, for users to be aware and they should know of, I would say uh, 2.19 would be the last version from 2.x series. So the WAR compatibility from 2.19 exists for 3.0 upgrade. So anybody who wants to upgrade to 3.0 would be recommended to get to 2.19 and then move to 3.0. So that way you get like a smoother experience, and then probably you don't have to worry about a lot of things when you are upgrading. There should be a good amount of focus when you're using APIs to see if the output is marked deprecated and things like that, so that you become ready to accept those things not working when you move to 3.0. And so that is specific focus I think users should keep an eye on. And of course, as part of 3.0, we will do the release blog and we'll list out all the breaking changes, which are currently listed in GitHub issue, should be published out and made available in form of documentation and some of those forums and details where user can easily get those information from. In coming to the specific set of breaking changes, I think there have been some API level changes in terms of deprecating names and getting rid of those things and on security. So I'll let Andrew cover some of those things in more detail.
Sure. Like I said, generally the kind of the core of the API is going to stay the same. It's been successful. There's no reason to make sort of unnecessary friction there. We started way back in the beginning of the 2.x line a deprecation of non-inclusive terms that were in some of the API. So those have been removed in 3.0. Most of them are now removed, but again, like Saurabh said, if you were using anything that was deprecated, there would be various deprecation warnings that would show up in your logs. So as long as you're not seeing that, the API will generally be compatible. If you are, for example, a plugin developer, these foundational changes are much more impactful in terms of if you're, for example, building a plugin on JDK 11, that's not going to work anymore. You're going to have to update to a modern JDK. Parts of the Lucene API leak into the plugin APIs. There will be breaking changes there. So it'll be perhaps a little bit more involved in terms of updating your build environment, fixing compilation errors, and dealing with that. But again, that would be for the kind of lower level plugin developers.
Important to test before pushing to prod, right?
For sure.
Awesome. Hey, we're running up on our time here. Any last comments that you'd like to? I'd love to have you on for a second episode, a follow up right after this, if you both are good for that. But any last things that you're excited about, or anything you want to share with our viewers here before we go?
Yeah, I think one thing which I wanted to touch upon, and I think it can be an answer to probably something where we started, Brian, is between 1.0 and 3.0. One of the major milestones what we hit was also moving to the Linux Foundation, and this is something huge. And I think over the period of these 4 or 5 years now, we have enormous, I would say, contributions coming from community, and I think the success of OpenSearch 3.0 can be highly attributed to the community, because as Andy was talking about, it's not just Amazon who is building features now. So we have like some of these features like pull-based indexing, Protobuf, gRPC, which are being actively developed by external partners. So yeah, that's kind of one of a huge stepping stone. I would see how we have kind of come along the way in the last 4 years or 5 years. Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. The move to the Linux Foundation, creating the OpenSearch Software Foundation was a big deal for us, and I think some of these new features coming from our other partners are evidence of the success there. And I'm really excited going forward to hopefully something of a snowball effect there that will continue to get more engagement at all levels of the system, users and developers from across the community contributing. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Hey, both of you, thank you so much for joining me today. And for everyone that's still watching, go ahead, like and subscribe. We'll see you around for the next episode of Instant Links. Have a good one.